I remembered Han Myung-go boasting about a private yacht at his Maldives villa. He'd say the propeller cutting through the water was like a highway on the sea. Now I knew what the feeling was like. Director Han's boat on the ocean was like the Gyeongbuk Expressway, and I was currently on the Autobahn. It really is amazing. Yusung and I rode on the back of the Queen and watched the ripples of Han River with fascination. As if testing her control, Shin Yusung led the Queen straight through a group of ichthyosaurs. Now Han River had become a safe zone, and it was preferable to disembark near Yeongsangu. The ichthyosaurs swam after Queen Mirabad like ducklings following their mother. I closed my eyes and felt the cool air against my face. This was a real nice feeling. It's a luxury I wouldn't have been able to enjoy if the world had remained the same. Shin Yusung kept mumbling on the Queen's head in order to sink their spirits. Yusung watched Shin Yusung and spoke with a complicated voice. If Yusung becomes stronger now, then won't her future self be stronger as well? I thought she would ask something like this. I don't think so. According to the original novel, the disaster that would come was the Shin Yusung of the future of different regressions. She was betrayed by Yu Jung-uk and abandoned outside the world. She had lost her sense of time and wandered the universe. Then, she became part of the scenarios due to the Starstream's blessing, and she became a disaster of past scenarios. Yusung raised the question. Then why will the future disaster be stopped if the current Yusung dies? If the branch is completely different... Have you heard of disconnected film theory? No. I watched the water and opened my mouth. Put simply, it's like this. Let's assume the history of Yusung from the first world of the film. Film? Are you talking about the film for movies? I nodded and continued. Assume that this world is film 1, and there must be countless films of the other worlds, right? There could be 2 films, and there could also be 34 films. I see. Is that right? What happens when one of the films, with the front broken, sticks to the back of the first film? For example, what if the ripped 34th film sticks to the back of the first film? What do you think will happen if the film is played? Yusung seemed troubled for a moment. Then the movie would change along the way. Wait a minute. The 2 stories never affect each other. That's right. Yusung is currently in such a situation. The present Yusung is from the first film, while the disaster is from the 34th film. The 2 stories are completely independent, and changes in our world can't affect the disaster. Yusung was truly smart. Still, the question remains, shouldn't the disaster remain if the current Yusung is killed? The contents of the film don't affect each other, but the 2 films are connected. Huh? What if the front of the film is set on fire? The real film will be on fire as well? The 2 world lines were connected. If the present Yusung dies, the future Yusung would also die. However, any changes to the present Yusung wouldn't change the future Yusung. That ambiguous paradox was at the heart of the disaster. Dokshi really knows a lot. I've heard of parallel cosmology, but I've never heard of such a theory before. I awkwardly nodded. Of course you wouldn't know it. It was a theory that the author of Ways of Survival created. As far as I knew, the laws of Ways of Survival had never been ruined. After a while, the water of Han River calmed down. We finally arrived at the other side of the Han River. The Queen dropped us off and then disappeared into the Han River again. Shin Yusung sighed like all tension had been released. How was I? Are you really asking? Well done. Shin Yusung's expression changed. She was pleased at receiving praise, now that there was nobody left to praise the child. Then I felt a fierce hostility coming from the buildings of Yeongsangu. A huge shadow came out from the shadows of the building. Giant praying mantis? The boy on top of the praying mantis looked down at me. Dokja Hyung? There was Lee Gil-young wearing a snapback and Han Dong-hoon with headphones. Lee Gil-young slid down the praying mantis and rushed into my arms. Lee Gil-young's snapback fell off his head. It was a reunion after 1 week. Then a message popped up on my smartphone. It was from Han Dong-hoon. It's good to see you, Hyung. Shouldn't you say it's nice to finally meet me after a long time? I don't want to. Lee Gil-young and Shin Yusung had a war of nerves as soon as they met. Lee Gil-young's hair was moving like it was actually an antenna, while Shin Yusung kept touching her hair. Ajishi, that boy keeps glaring at me. Hyung, who is she? It seemed people of a similar type recognized each other. One was a beast master, and the other was an insect master. I didn't know if they would fit together. I asked Lee Gil-young, you haven't met Hee-won-shi yet? Yes. However, I know where she is. I sent an insect to look. Hyewon-nun is currently in the north. I expected from Gil-young. He was already searching for the group members without being told. By the way, the north was where the King of Wanderers were currently located. Maybe Jung-hee was in contact with her. I know Hyung was coming. I sent a lot of diving beetles. Speaking of which, the bugs on Lee Gil-young's head had increased. There had definitely only been a cockroach before. Shin Yu-sung frowned like it was disgusting. I checked the power of the party and concluded. It's better to stay here for 2 days. Raise your skill levels as high as possible and collect coins in your spare time. Take care of your overall stats. Yusung-ashi. Yes? Did you contact your family? Yusung's face suddenly darkened. It seemed like she hadn't contacted them yet. Dong-hoon. Han Dong-hoon kept his headphones on and nodded silently. Han Dong-hoon had a wide area internet as a skill. In other words, it was possible to communicate with the outside world. Yusung's smartphone rang, and there was a message that it was connected to the internet. Yusung looked down like she doubted her eyes, before staring at me tearfully. I nodded and continued. Tell your family the situation. Once this scenario is over, the outside of Seoul will no longer be a safe zone. What will happen? I don't know. Just tell them to be prepared. That's enough for now. Dr. Shi, don't you have to contact anyone? I'm fine. But my family is in Seoul. Seoul? Then they are safe. I silently stared towards the north. Then the system message arrived like it had been waiting. Someone has dealt with a disaster of water in the north. The King of Wanderers had finished her work safely. There was only one disaster left. It was a disaster of floods. The bright energy sword made a faint sound as it was raised into the air. It struck dozens of energy blades at once. Blood flowed from Jung Hee-won's eyes and scattered through the air. Soon, Jung Hee-won's sword stopped. I think that's it. Jung Hee-won carefully inspected the sword and smiled with satisfaction. The middle-aged woman across from her also smiled faintly. Joan Wuchi's technique is amazing. Hee-won-shi's kendo is also excellent. You'll soon have a sponsor, and I might not be a match for you. I'm flattered. Jung Hee-won stared at the woman's blue prison uniform. In the past week, Jung Hee-won had been indebted to them. It was the debt that probably couldn't be repaid with the remaining time. The middle-aged woman asked, Do you really not want to join our new wave group? The king will be delighted if Hee-won-shi joins. I'm sorry, but my companions are waiting. Jung Hee-won raised her hands in an apologetic manner. The middle-aged woman just smiled like it couldn't be helped. The woman already knew who the members of Jung Hee-won's party were. I hope he knows that Hee-won-shi is this desperate. He knows. Jung Hee-won looked at the sky with a slightly disgruntled expression. Somehow, I think he's watching me right now. This is why I didn't want her knowing about Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. In any case, Jung Hee-won seemed to be growing well. I was worried since her character hadn't seen the light in the original book, but I was glad my choice was correct. Then I watched someone else using Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. Fortunately, there weren't many visible points to determine the person's identity. What was this? A familiar face soon appeared on the screen. It was me? Wait, these people. Hey, you! Lee Gung spoke in a ferocious voice. Stay away from Hyung! Then Shin Yu-sung, who was lying next to me, replied, What if I don't want to? This mongrel. Don't talk to me, you worm bastard! Lee Gung was stunned. The cockroach and other bugs moved wildly on his head. Lee Gung barely regained his composure. Hyung hates kids like you. I know who Ajishi likes. You know who Ajishi likes? Who? And Unni. Lee Gung laughed. Unni, I think you're misinformed. Hyung likes a man. How do you know? I've been with Hyung for a long time. I barely managed to wake up as the terrible conversation began. I hurriedly looked around and saw Lee Gilling and Shin Yu-sung sleeping, with their heads leaning on something. Did I see wrongly? Was it just a dream? Dr. Shi, what's wrong? I shook my head at Yu-sung's question. It must be a dream. I was just lying back down when I heard a whisper from somewhere. Hey, Bug. Come to think of it, you hugged Ajishi earlier. You a baby? Do you like old people? It wasn't a dream. Excuse me, aren't you sleeping? Yu-sung warned. Then the surroundings became silent, and the children's snoring started soon afterwards. 2 days flew by in a flash. The sub-scenario, survival activities, has ended. Everyone heard the system message as they woke up and got ready. It was a long but short scenario. Then a message from Bi-hyung arrived. 9,421. It was a number. Bi-hyung spoke again. 9,513. What? Don't you understand? 9,611. I noticed right away what the number was. At that time, I made a 10,000 promise. The constellations who love the Korean peninsula are nervous about the number of subscribers left. I asked Bi-hyung, did you do what I told you? I did, but I don't know if it'll be any good. In any case, I wish you luck. 9,781. The swirling great hall in the sky showed an unusual omen. There was a thunderstorm, and the intermittent sound of thunder was heard. Then an intermediate dokkaebi appeared in the air. Everyone, you've been waiting a long time. The intermediate dokkaebi looked gaunt. He had probably been suffering from the bureau. Did you enjoy the survival activities? The snare that you've been waiting for will finally begin. There were some disruptions, but yes, well, it will be a fun scenario to look forward to. He looked at me and the incarnations and continued speaking in a disgruntled tone. You've stopped 4 of the 5 disasters. I fully acknowledge your accomplishments, but do you know? The other 4 were just child's play compared to the last disaster. The faces of the people became tense. In fact, he was right. None of the other disasters compared to the disaster of floods. Depending on the success of this scenario, everything you've done so far might go away and everything will be over. Frankly, the odds of that happening are over 90%. Fortunately, there are those who commiserate with you. I formed a tight fist. It was finally starting. The last event before the 5th scenario started. Then, from now on, I will start the second sponsor selection